Hello, my name is Austin Reed. I'm a veteran from the United States Marine Corps. I'm with Andy, who's also a veteran from the Marine Corps, and I was going to interview him and ask him some questions. So the first thing I was going to ask you was, how was your transition out of the Marine Corps? Like, do you think it was really challenging, or do you think it went pretty smooth?
Um, so my transition, I guess, should have prepped some answers, but it was pretty smooth. I didn't really like take a break from working. Like I didn't take my terminal to sit around for 40 days. I found a job right away at Hexagon Metrology. So I went from one job right to another, and then I enrolled in it here at Miracosta. So I kind of kept my feet running. I never took that break. So it was pretty smooth. I never really got that shock of like actually leaving the Marine Corps because I kept myself so busy. And it wasn't until like after my first semester where I had like that summer break, because I went from spring to summer, where it was kind of weird. But yeah, but initially it was pretty smooth.
Pretty you pretty much just hit the ground running, like starting school and work.
Yeah.
Did you ever feel like you had a change in identity, kind of like you had a loss in identity? Like I always tell people, before I was a sergeant in the Marine Corps, I was training anywhere between 60 to 20 people at a time. I was at a deployment, and now I'm Austin.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do you trying to find out who you are now afterwards? So did you ever have that feeling, kind of, or?
Yeah, it wasn't until that summer where I really kind of noticed it, right? Because me too. I was a sergeant in the Marine Corps, and I realized my life finally slowed down. I kind of had a moment to think about it, and then I was like, I'm just chilling in Oceanside. I don't have to go to the field. I don't have to do any of that stuff that I had to do in the Marine Corps, because I finally had a moment to reflect on it. And but I wouldn't say a loss of identity, because that always sticks with you.
Yeah.
I mean, I felt
like a change,
Yeah, I felt more of I lost something that I love to do, and I didn't realize that I like doing it so much until I had that moment of reflection that I could think about it.
I was talking to someone about it today, and I was like, I still talk to the guys that are in,
Yeah.
because they're right there at Pilnen, and they talk about going to the field, and I miss that. But I know if I was in right now, and now we're about to do a workup going to the field, I would be bitching every single day.
Yeah, you
trying
did.
to, because we would usually work from, literally 6 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Trying to get prep for the field.
Yeah.
The week or two before. So I don't miss that, but the field, actually going out there and doing your job, that would be really cool.
Yeah, I don't know. I never really, even now, it always sticks with you. Especially, I work here in veterans counseling, veteran student services, and I get to be around veterans all day. So I think that kind of cushioned the blow a little bit, because I stay so involved and connected to veterans that I never really felt like I never shy away from that I was a veteran. So and I think maybe that has to do with some people are actually feeling that way of the loss of identity. But I think being around veterans all the time, it kind of makes that transition easier.
What was the hardest part of your transition, that you can remember?
Without getting too personal, I guess.
No, yeah, I mean, you can get just whatever you feel comfortable.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is my personal relationships. If I'm being completely honest, my relationships when I was comfortably and securely employed versus me coming out and school in itself is like a job. If you want to do well, you gotta put just as much hours into that as you do an actual job. So I think balancing out my life and striking a balance between bettering myself every day and then being able to actually afford to survive was probably the biggest challenge.
Yeah, I felt the same way. Like, I think that was the hardest part of me and my wife's relationship is when I got out. Like, we spent time apart when I was deployed,
Yeah.
and we spent time apart, on workups or when we spent time apart, and field exercises, and so like distance never hurt the relationship. But me coming out of the military, there was something about it that put more strain on it than anything else because there's so much more uncertainty in the future.
Yeah, dude, there is.
And and now there was kind of like the military had a control over your future while you're in. Like, I knew I had a little bit of a say where I would go, but for the most part, like, I kind of got to guide myself toward deployments or guide myself to duty stations. But after that, and we're like, well, what we want to do for the rest of our lives, basically.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pressure on that.
Yeah, of course.
And so I think that's a hard part. So if there's like any advice you could give to anybody on like who's thinking about getting out of the military, what would you tell them?
I would tell them to do what I did as far as like not taking that time on your terminal leave to think it's like a period of time where you can unwind from being in the military. Because like they always tell you when you go to TRS or you're getting out or what's your backup plan. Like that's important. Like it may sound stupid and they may sound like, oh, like they don't know what they're talking about. Because they thought about that very same thing. Like they don't have a backup plan. Their backup plan is the Marine Corps. But when you get out and you don't have an actual plan, like what you're gonna do, and like you don't want to seek employment or like secure employment before you step out that door, like that uncertainty, like it gets worse. And working in this building, we see a lot of veterans who are just getting out or who end up homeless, right? A lot of the single ones. And I think that's like probably the most, like, take it serious, like my advice would just be find a job, find a roommate, and like go to school because your GI Bill benefits is you're basically getting paid to go to school 10 months out of the year. And like that's the best advice I could give you. Like have a plan. You know what I mean? Like you have to be an adult. The Marine Corps is not gonna be there to kind of like hold your hand through it. Like you don't have a barracks room to run to. You don't have a job. You don't know where you're gonna find your next meal and stuff like that. Like that would be kind of my biggest piece of advice.
Do you like? Was it hard for you to relate to people when you got in the military that wasn't in?
No, I'm pretty sociable, man. I feel like I hear that veteran stereotype a lot, and I think that's more in tune with like the type of veteran you get. I mean, there's some veterans who had a lot of different experiences from the general, like from say somebody who did 4 years after 2013, right? It's like a different Marine, it's a different veteran. It's a different from deploying in 2012 to deploying in 2015. You get like a mix, and I think, and like it like varies off experience, but I don't think like I've had any problem with that, like talking to people. Sometimes, like if they're like they're like 15 years old. I'm just obviously I just don't want to talk to that person. You know what I mean?
I think the hardest thing for me was dialing down my humor, like provocative humor kind of stuff.
And I do cuss a lot.
Yeah.
So I think that's the only thing. I think I cuss a lot. I talk a lot of shit. That's just something I picked up from being in the field and in the Marine Corps and surrounded by dudes for the last like 5 years, and it's really hard for me to dial it down, even sometimes when I'm at work.
Yeah.
I'm like, or like I just come off aggressive, and people find that. I don't know. Sometimes.
I think one of the funny, I was working for a moving company that hires mostly vets, and in those a lot of the guys were older. Like one dude was in the Army during 9/11. And like the humor still seemed to stay the same, but sometimes I'd make jokes here, and what was the joke? Someone asked me did I get a haircut, and I basically cut off all my hair, and I was like, no. and they're like, oh. And I was like, yeah, I'm just kidding, you know, just that type of humor that like sarcasm, like very heavily sarcasm.
Yeah.
So it's like I had to realize like, okay, there's a lot of people that just don't pick up on sarcasm, like the way that we like I was used to.
Yeah.
So I feel like that like I think the media and people when they think about not being able to relate to people, they take it way over the top.
Yeah.
And it's usually the small things that you're kind of used to, like the little inside jokes, the humor that is just not there anymore, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Because it's like all the same. You can go to any service member and crack the same jokes and they'll get it.
Yeah.
It's like a little tribe, you know? It's pretty cool.
I always refer to it as like a necessary abuse.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that necessary abuse you have to have to be in the military.
Yeah.
And it's just if you're looking on the outside in, you don't quite get it. It like,
okay.
did you ever feel like there was any stigma about being a veteran?
Yeah. So I took a class here at Maricosta. It's a veterans only English class, and there was like a class project that was about like interviewing veterans and stuff like that, and I felt like having discussions about topics like that about the military, you get a lot of pushback from a lot of kids on campus, and it's not so much pushback to the individual, it's like more pushback towards the institution, and then I think in talking to them they realize that we're just people doing a job. That's all it is at the end of the day. It's occupation, just like anything else. But it gets so much attention, and a lot of the stuff that the stigma that they apply to veterans is based on like a hint of like being ignorant about like global issues like that, and then more some like just being too young to really understand, more naivety than anything else. And I think once like you talk to them, you give them like a kind of a general understanding of what's going on, and I think sometimes more often than not their perspective changes.
Yeah, I kind of felt the same way when I would talk to people about where I was when I was deployed and how the local populace viewed the military and what they thought of us doing there, and how you come back to the United States and it's like the opposite. A lot of people have like the opposite view or the stigma. Like there was like basically my political science class, they asked, do you think the local population wants us to be there? And like almost all the veterans said yeah, because you've
interacted with them.
We know who they are. We do a lot for their communities, and we do a lot of protection for them. And even though like sometimes things happen in war where there's like civilian casualties, they understand that regardless if we're there or not, that's going to happen because they're in the middle of this conflict. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. So it seems a lot more of United States imperialism than what it a lot of times than what it really is.
Yeah, a lot of stuff you really can't get into. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
Especially you telling me what you were doing, what you did a little bit, and it's funny when you have the experience to kind of understand versus somebody who's maybe read an article or two,
yeah,
and they're trying to virtue signal and make you feel like shit for something you did, but something they don't understand.
Yeah. The only time I've ever experienced that personally was actually before I just enlisted. I didn't even go to boot camp yet, and people were kind of like, "Well, you just really just joined to go kill babies."
Yeah.
And I was like, "No, that's not really what." Like, in my mind, I'm like, "Wow, I can't believe." But I was thinking, I can't believe they thought that. But I knew veterans and people who had actually gone overseas in my family and talked to them about it. So, like my older brother, he was in Marja, and so I talked to him a little bit about it, and so I kind of had a better understanding growing up about what it's kind of like to be in the military and the opportunities that the military gives people.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's it. And I also feel like there are like issues that veterans face that are not combat related. Like a small percentage of the military actually sees combat, but we're all kind of treated as an overall like blanket of, that issue of we're all suffering from the same circumstance, and like it's not the same. Like I was talking to one gunner sergeant just got out, and I was talking to him about this stuff, and he was basically saying how, he was an air winger, and he's feel like he's having challenges from getting out of the Marine Corps, but he's not been to combat or anything like that, and he doesn't want to be treated like PTSD. He just want to help with the challenges he's facing, but it kind of gets this overarching like, oh, you're struggling. You must have seen something. It's like, no, it's just we get institutionalized in this organization, and then it's harder for some people to come out of that, especially the longer you've been.
I didn't even think of that perspective. I think there's something too, where you're talking about identity. Regressing back to that. I guess that was like one of the biggest parts where it's like, yeah, you have the sense of like having such a regimented schedule, and I think when I blasted myself with keeping myself too busy, I didn't realize it till the summer, and I didn't have anything to do. And I was like, didn't know what to do with my hands type shit, and that was like a big challenge for sure. Like to do something for 5 years straight. It's the same thing, same schedule, same type of shit every day, and then you get out of that. I get that. That's crazy.
So like, I pulled up a statistic from the VA about how most veterans that commit suicide are actually veterans that have not been deployed.
Oh wow.
So why do you think that is? Like I know you actually you deployed, and I guess I was having a hard time wrapping my head around why that would be, but I think the only thing I can come up with is that a lot of these non-deployable units, they're just as institutionalized as we are, and they probably feel some of the same, not having to go to combat guilt, but maybe some type of guilt or regret that they felt from bringing from the military, and there's kind of this whole dogma about if you haven't seen combat, like you really don't have anything to complain about, kind of thing. Do you feel the same way, or do you?
I think one of the biggest things, especially when I talk to veterans and like now, one of the stupidest questions I always get asked, is, which I think is stupid, I know a lot, and I think it's the most. Some people think it's like people don't even realize they do it. Maybe the first thing someone asks is like, "What'd you do?"
Yeah.
So right, that curiosity, like, "Ooh, what did this person do?" And I feel like
you're a rifleman, mortarman.
Yeah, like that kind of thing. People really want to know what you did, and I feel like, and then when someone is like, they're honest about what they did, and I was like, "Oh, you don't want to do that," and then they shame them because of it, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, and then the second question is always followed up, is like, "Did you deploy?" And then, you know what I mean? Like, you always get these series of questions that it's like these checks in the box that somebody's like measuring you by.
From other veterans, or
from other veterans, you see it all the time, and I would say maybe the reason it happens is because they're those people that don't deploy, or those people that don't don't have that much experience, besides just being in the fleet, they get categorized into a whole separate section of being a different type of veteran.
Yeah.
Like, you're a veteran, but you're a veteran.
Yeah.
That quotation marks around, an asterisk, right?
Like sarcastic, basically.
Sarcastic,
you didn't. Well,
and I feel like maybe that's why they get shamed into it a little bit.
And I have veterans in my family, and my older brother was a combat veteran.
Mm-hmm.
And I do I can see that because there is that type of. I don't know how to phrase it other than a pissing contest, basically.
Yeah, it's always a pissing contest.
And that's a part of the military mentality, but I feel like sometimes it gets taken to the point where you're disowning other people's service when they probably have gone out and tried to do the best they probably could in the situation. I knew great guys that were great at their job that just never had a deployment opportunity because they just joined at this time, and they're in between cycles, and they did not have the experience for one deployment, and the next deployment they were about to get out.
Yeah, so it's like I was saying, I guess fancier words. It's like you create a marginalized group of
Yeah.
veterans, right? That asterisk mark next to it, and like my only, I guess, idea of why that is because they're marginalized and they feel, you know, veterans make those other veterans feel somewhat inferior, like their service doesn't matter, or you know, that I guess that caused, and you see it like you've just seen those interactions where it's like you're constantly being measured against the veteran next to you, you know, so. I don't know if that directly I don't know if I'm
If
not
that's
saying that directly correlates
to suicide rate.
Yeah.
You know, I just think that there are different challenges that we are facing as veterans, and it's not just combat oriented all the time.
Yeah.
You know, some of the most stressful time was not even when I was deployed. It was back in garrison, under a lot of work pressure from my unit. And I know if you're like the administration Marines around us always look dead. You know, the admin Marines, because they're you know, just getting beat from the work cycle and the intensity. Oh man, there was one more question I was going to ask you. So do you regret getting out of the military, or?
So I guess I'll be honest with you why I got out. So I got out to save a relationship, which in turn didn't actually work out. So it was probably not the best decision, like not really something I thought through. I wouldn't say I regret it. I do, you know, let's just say I wouldn't regret if I had stayed in and let my relationship dissipate and end. And I don't regret getting out. So I would have been happy either way.
I was
like I can't use hindsight.
Yeah.
Because I think I would have been happy regardless.
So you think you would be happy with whatever decision you made?
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
Did you ever notice, like, I don't know what your experience was, but for me, when I got out, I noticed that my drinking definitely cut down a good bit, stuff like that. Was it the same way for you, or did you, like, some of your patterns change, or did you start hitting the gym? Well, I quit working out altogether, to be honest. So
yeah, so did I.
So
I gained a lot of weight.
Yeah.
I gained like 50 pounds in like a year, and I've kind of got it back under control. But like that first year, I definitely gained a lot of weight. But no, I didn't. The main changes I saw that my bad eating habits in the military were no longer
doable
because I wasn't working out or being like in the field as much. So I gained that weight quick. So I had to stop doing that. I was a drinker. I didn't really drink. I drank on the weekends. I didn't day drink. I didn't like weekend.
You didn't drink during the weekdays,
weekdays. I only drank on the weekends, and I only really got drunk like during ball season. You know, when our units would go to Vegas and stuff. But the one thing I haven't been able to stop doing that has followed me to this day is smoking cigarettes. It's something I picked up as a boot, and it's something I still do, and I hate it.
Yeah, that was the one thing I managed to not pick up when I was in the military was tobacco.
Yeah.
I knew that if I did it a week straight, I would be hooked on it forever. Coffee.
Yeah.
I picked up coffee.
That too, and I probably smoke more now than I did when I was it's just as bad, if not worse.
If you could go back and change anything about your transition, what would you do differently? Would you stay in, like, because you're not from San Diego originally, are you?
No, I'm from here. Yeah.
Oh, you are?
I was
Okay.
born and raised in San Diego. I lived in Oceanside for a little bit, like as a kid, and then I lived in San Diego proper. But if there's anything I could change during my transition, I would say just kind of enjoy those last couple months with like the veterans I was with, like, or the active, that's some of my active buddies. Enjoy those moments, like, and actually cherish them, and like, you know, spend more time hanging out with those guys, because like I haven't seen those guys since I got out, like almost 2 years ago. Like none of them. They all moved back home. I moved back home. You know, I had plans to see them over this winter break, which I'm gonna drive cross country, and it'll be like the first time I've seen a lot of them in like 2 years. But I would say that was like something I would do differently. I would actually, like, damn, these are the last moments I'm gonna see these guys for like a long time.
I think the best advice I ever gotten was one of my friends got out before me, and he told me to go to the Veteran Center, or go find some local veteran group and connect with. He goes, it doesn't matter what you did in the military, you know, it's very helpful.
Yeah.
Do you feel the same way, or like do you think that's a solid piece of advice, or do you not think that really matters as much?
Yeah. You know, it's weird because working here in the Veterans Student Services Center,
Kind of forced to have to deal with veterans, huh?
yeah, but you know, the one thing that I've noticed is a lot of the veterans that do come in here do better. They do better with their transitions. They do better, like in school. They have people that hold them accountable. So I think, yeah, that's a solid piece of advice. You know, when you find somebody who's like-minded and with like experiences, and what's the saying, like sharpen iron,
Still sharpen steel.
Steel sharpens steel. So does one person to another, right? So I think when you hold yourself accountable from somebody who you find you're equal, and you see them pushing themselves, and they push you, and you push them, I think, yeah, that's a fairly good piece of advice.
So I kind of wanted to ask you, is there anything about your military service that you kind of want to share with anybody or people? Like, what did you do and stuff like that? I mean, you don't have to if you want to, but...
Not really. You know, I deployed 3 times to Afghanistan, and then once on a special MAGTF. I don't know if your audience knows what that is, but you do.
Yeah. A special purpose MAGTF.
Yeah, but no, not really. I had a good time. I had fun. The military was an incredible experience that I wouldn't trade for anything in the world, and yeah, nothing really. Not too exciting.
So my kind of goal for this, and I kind of want to interview more people as we go, but the whole idea is that you know, I want to share veteran stories and kind of with their views, so that way when other veterans listen to this, if they feel like they have a similar problem, that they kind of understand like it's not just them. Because there's a lot of guys that go back to their hometown and they're like, that's it. Like they don't have the kind of community that we get here. And also that I noticed that I was kind of very fortunate that my family works with a lot, or has a lot of veterans in it.
Yeah.
But especially like my younger brother, he's a veteran too. He was some of his friends, and we're having to help some of his friends who go back to their family and carry some of their habits over from the military that are like looked down upon by their family, that don't correlate. You know, they're making the same type of like joke and humors, and they have the same type of drinking habits that people are like, "What's wrong with you, man? Are you okay?"
Yeah.
You know, and it's just hoping to kind of raise get an inside perspective of what the military life is like a little bit, because I think a lot of times that people have this persona of consistent nobility and honorable, but we're people. We do a job. We like to party. There's bad habits in the military. There's good habits in the military. Like the Marine Corps, a lot of the traditions tend to involve alcohol.
Yeah.
But also like a lot of traditions also involve a lot of discipline and like unit cohesion too.
Yeah.
So take the good with the bad. But you know, especially if you came from like a small town to where like I'm from a dry county in northeast Mississippi, because apparently Jesus doesn't believe in alcohol. Just kidding. But
Yeah.
you know, where I guess everyone forgets that his first miracle was turning water into wine.
Yeah.
So, but you know, you take someone in, like if I had gone back, started talking to my community, and like, oh, this is what a Marine Corps ball was like. The reaction I'd probably gotten would have been like, are you okay? It's something like that.
Yeah.
So I kind of just hoping that when people listen to this, they can understand like this is the type of culture that those people were leaving and kind of coming into. So.
Yeah, it's I think it sounds exaggerated, and I think that's where like that big disconnect comes from, and it is like you basically, not to sound like sexist or anything, but for me, I was in an all male unit, a bunch of people my age from as young as 18 to 25. Usually that's usually how the older it gets in the barracks, and you got a lot of downtime on the weekends. You got a lot of downtime during the weekdays at night, especially if you're not in the field, and especially for me, I was in 29 Palms, which
it's pretty rough and rowdy.
I don't know if any of your listeners know what 29 Palms looks like, but it's a giant desert, and you don't got a whole lot to do. So Friday nights, Saturday nights, Thursday nights, even the barracks turns into a fraternity house, and it gets pretty rowdy, and and I think it's not, and you do that so often, and you have a lot of like holidays during, like when you're in the Marine Corps, especially if you don't deploy during those periods of time, where you don't have anywhere to go, and you just develop these super bad habits. And Vegas is like 2 hours away, so you start going to Vegas, spending your money, and it sounds like you wouldn't be able to sustain something like that, but it's like the only way that you can like de-stress is by picking up things that relieve stress, and yeah.
Because it's not like work, because you work out so much, it's not like that even helps anymore.
Yeah, it does, and now it's your body's used to hurting. Your body's used to being put into stress, and it's put under all that stress so often that you take the things that you do for pleasure and the things you take to de-stress, and you take those things and you do them more often than you should.
So I kind of want to end this because we both said we're both in the Marine Corps,
Yeah.
and I'm pretty sure a lot of people don't really understand what the Marine Corps is. So how do you define the Marine Corps as part of the branch of the services? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I usually tell people it's an amphibious. It's a branch that's focused on amphibious assaults. Even though that we're not very focused on that anymore, that we still do a lot of kind of transition from amphibious assaults to. I use the. I guess.
Do you want to describe it what it is as far as like occupationally or?
Yeah, I mean, like we're more of a elite infantry unit.
Yeah, I mean the Marine Corps is. Yeah, it's basically a big ass infantry unit with a bunch of support, and basically it's tasked with going in and
being better than all the other branches, right?
Yeah, going in there, and we're in there to take ground and try to do it better than all the other branches. And I'd say we do a pretty damn good job of that.
The biggest difference between the Marine Corps and the Army is the fact that usually our intent is not to occupy, and that's more of the Army's jurisdiction.
Yeah.
But we do go in and all the times as far as like major invasions, like what we took Fallujah, we took Marja.
Yeah.
Island hopping campaign. So my wife, she was dating me in high school. She didn't know what the Marine Corps was.
Yeah.
And I was like, how do I define that? And where's the separation? And a lot of people don't understand. There's a lot of overlap in the military.
Yeah, I mean, as far as now though, like looking back with some hindsight, I would just call it like a fraternity. It's so small, and it's such a.
It's like
a special thing to be a part of. I wouldn't describe it as something I did occupationally, right? Or like what it does, how it functions. I would describe it more in terms of like just being a brotherhood. Like a little secret order. It's kind of cool. You always hear that statistic being thrown around. We're like 1% of the 1%. Yeah.
We're only 160,000 strong, and the Army's like 2 million.
Yeah, you hear that 1% of the 1%, and that's like cool. That's like, and then of the population, you're even a smaller percent. It's you know, it's something, and even when you graduate boot camp, it's like they make it this like special moment, right? You get put up on this mountain, give you like your eagle globe and anchor, and basically it's some like they basically beat your ass for like 18 weeks, and then at the end of it, you know, they call you, they call you by, you get to call them by their rank, and you know, you get like a little bit of respect, and you know, like, hey, welcome to the bottom of the totem pole, and from here on out, it's up to you how you change the Marine Corps, what input you make into the Marine Corps, you know, how you make this organization better, and you know, I think that's what makes it like super special, because it's not just like fall in line. Maybe it feels like that after a while, right? And that's like based on leadership, but I think at its purest form, like at the very end of boot camp, that's what the Marine Corps is all about.
I will say the Marine Corps is probably one of the few branches that individuals really can change how operations are done.
Yeah, of course.
Like significantly, and to me that was a crazy part, especially when I started working with other branches, how, you know, they didn't understand what the NCO was as a corporal in the Marine Corps, and the big difference was, and once you explain that, they're looking at like, well, you're like, you know, doing staff sergeant's jobs, or you're pretty close to, basically like E8s, you know, some of the responsibility as an E4 in the Marine Corps without the pay. Without the pay.
Yeah.
But you know, and I think that's the crazy part was I would see Lance Corporals lead teams and do it very well, you know, and then getting to work with some of these other units to where I would have E5s and E5s, like, I don't know about E6 on the bus, but E5s asked me like, hey, what's going on? And I was like, you're the E5, this is petty officer, you're the petty officer, you're supposed to tell me, dude, you know. And that was kind of crazy, and it's the kind of that type of the mentality of like
taking ownership of any responsibility serious, at a younger age or at a lower rank, and they always say, that's that saying, you know, one up, one down in the Marine Corps. You know, somebody one down from you can do your job if you can't do it, and you can go one up and do someone else's job if they can't do it. And I think it's like even that mentality with like football, like next man up type thing. I think the Marine Corps does like a really good job of fostering that. You know, especially if you do show that you're competent. You know, the Marine Corps rewards you with extra responsibilities, and that may sound like counterintuitive to somebody who wants to like skate by and not do much.
Because there are definitely people like that.
But it's a reward system, you know. The more you do, you know, the more you get away with. You know, the more stuff you get to do. But you know, you also get those opportunities that somebody else wouldn't be afforded. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you know, I've seen people not get awards that they should have gotten in the military, but I do think a lot of, you know, it's also dependent on leadership, right? And I was very fortunate that most, like, consistently while I was in the Marine Corps, I had really strong leadership from staff NCOs to officers.
Yeah.
But I have seen, and this is obviously coming from like peer-to-peer perspective, but some of people in other units, when they talk to me about what they did and what basically was kind of ignored. But I think overall the Marine Corps tries to, you know, a lot of people try to put the best foot forward, you know, and what a lot of people kind of confuse with the Marine Corps as an institution is not the institution as a whole, it's the individuals that are ahead of them and the institution that are directly influencing them. You know, like it's the Marine Corps as an institution. It's not, you know, it's not all good, but it's not all bad. But if the Marine Corps could be the worst thing for you if you're in a chain of command that has an extremely terrible staff NCO, an extremely terrible officer in charge, you know, staff NCO, staff non-commissioned officer, and you know, officer in charge. If you know, if they're doing things that are not, you know, building unit cohesion or troop welfare, then that could be detrimental. And then if you're the lowest gun tone, well, to you, this whole institution seems like the worst thing in the world, but you could look past that and you start talking to other units. You're like, well, I didn't have that experience because both my officers and staff and COs, did a good job making us do a good job.
Yeah.
So, I think, if you're going to talk to someone about the military, just if I was going to give people advice, it's just to kind of be aware of that whatever anyone tells you about their military is that their own individual experience from that specific unit they're in.
Yeah, it definitely varies, and again, taking from my experience working in here, I hear a lot about that. I hear a lot of that too. I was fortunate as you were. I didn't have shitty leaders. I respected them. A lot of them, helped me out even now. And it definitely varies. It's not all the same, and I think that has a lot to do with how people transition out as well.
Is there anything any last remarks you want to make?
No. Peace.
Thanks.